So for the next topic, we're looking at the absolute value functions, and we're going to be looking at graphing these, graphing the inequalities, and some more with the transformation. So let's look into this as we go through it. So starting off with the vertex form of an absolute value function is f of x is equal to a times x minus the absolute value of x minus h plus k. That is a vertex form of an absolute value function. So now let's go ahead and go through doing a few of these. So always when you're starting off with these, you want to start off by finding your vertex first every single time. So when we find our vertex, we do opposite inside, same outside. And so the opposite inside is going to give me 2, 1. So I come over to 2, go up to 1, that's where my vertex is. Now I'm going to take and move from there with my absolute value. So my slope going to the right is going to be whatever this number is, so 1 over 1. And so if I'm going right, that means I need to go up. So right 1, up 1. Until I run out of graph. My slope going left, on the other hand, it's going to be the opposite, so negative 1 over 1. Again, I'm going to go up and go to the left. And now I'm going to draw in my line. So the line going to the left, and then my line going to the right. I mean, right and left. So now I need to identify each of the things it's asking for. So my vertex was 2, 1. My domain on absolute value functions is always negative infinity to positive infinity. And my range was my low value. So here's my low value. So I'm looking at that according to y values. The y value there is 0. I can be there, so I have a bracket all the way up to positive infinity. So now let's go ahead and look at 2. And while we're looking at 2, it doesn't have all the pieces. It doesn't have everything that you need for standard form. So I'm going to go ahead and write it in vertex form. And so I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it where it's in vertex form completely. And that helps me identify where is my vertex. Well, my vertex is opposite inside. So negative 4, 0. So negative 4, and then I'm on the x-axis. So my slope going left and my slope going right are going to be different because we're dealing with the absolute value. And so when I go to the right, it's going to be just like what I say up above. So that means that I go right, and since it's negative, I'm going to go down. My slope going left is going to be the opposite sign, so 5/3. I'm going to go left, and I'm going to also go down. Remember, these are going to have to match where they are. So I'm going to go down 5, go left 3, go down 5, go left, or right 4, or 3. So I'm going to go ahead and graph those in. And so when I find my vertex, again, that was at negative 4, 0. My domain for absolute value is always negative infinity to positive infinity. My range is my low, which this time when I hit my low, it's going to be the arrow. So negative infinity, comma, my high, which is here, at 0. So looking at number 3, we have to do our vertex, which is 2, -7. So go over to 2, go down to -7. And then my slope going right is +1/1. So that means that when I go positive and I'm going right, I need to go up. My slope going left is -1/1. So when I go left and I'm negative, I still need to go up. But these two are going to match. So I'm going to do that until I run out of graph space. And I go the other way, same idea, until I run out of graph space. And so my vertex is again 2, -7. My domain is -infinity to +infinity. And my range is my low value, which here's where my low is. So at -7, all the way up to my arrow, infinity. So now let's look at number 4. So again, we're going to look for our vertex first. And so there's nothing inside. So remember, that's going to be x plus 0 inside. So 0, 4 is my vertex. And so now we're going to take and move with our slope. Our slope is going to the right is -2/1. So when I go right and I'm negative, that means I go down. My slope going left is going to be a +2/1. So I'm still going down when I go left. And so I plot my vertex, which is at 0, +4. My slope going to the right is 2/1, -2/1. So I'm going to go ahead and fill that in until I run out of graph space. Now my graph going to the left is going to be a +2/1, which still means I go down, because left and down will result in a positive slope. So my vertex is at 0, 4. My domain is from -infinity to +infinity. And my range is my low, which is an arrow, to my high, which is at 4. So now take and let's look at some inequalities. So the only thing that's going to change when you have an inequality versus a regular function is you have to figure out, is it solid or dashed? And so you're going to look here. That's going to tell me it's solid. And then I need to find my vertex, which there's nothing added outside, so +0 on the outside. So my vertex is at -3, 0. And then my slope going to the right is -2/1, which means I go down and to the right. My slope going to the left is a +2/1, which means as I go to the left, I'm also going to go down. And then I'm going to go ahead and graph that in. This time I'm going to use a solid line. And the last thing I have to do is I have to think about the shading. So it says greater, so that means up. And so I'm going to shade above it. Everywhere that's above it. And so that's the way it would look when I graph it with that inequality. Make sure you have a solid line, make sure you're shading above it, and make sure your vertex and slope are correctly plotted. So number 6, which is the last one we're going to graph in this section, is when I have my vertex, it's at -6, comma, -4. This line is going to be dashed. So at -6, -4, put a circle. My slope, as I'm going to the right, is 1/1. So that means as I go right, I rise or go up. My slope going to the left is a -1/1. So as I go left, I need to rise. So I'm going to go ahead and draw those points in so I can come back in with my line. This time my line needs to be dashed. So I need to make sure my line is dashed. As I go up to the little left. And I'm going to go the same thing going up to the right. Now we need to figure out where we're shading. So when I shade, it's less. So that means lower. And so that's where I would shade. And so now going to the last one. We have, it's reflected across the x-axis. So that's going to be a negative in front of my function. Absolute value. And it says it shifted 5 units left, so it's going to be inside. It's going to go opposite, but I think it should. So if I'm going left, that means I'm going to add 5 to my absolute value on the inside. And the vertex is going to be at -5, comma, 0. On this next one, it says I'm vertically compressed by a factor of 1/3. So x of x equals 1/3. And then it says that I am shifted 1 unit up. So it's going to be +1 at the end. And 2 units to the right. So inside it with the x, I'm going 2 units to the right. So that means -2. And my vertex is at at 2, 1. And so that's it for that topic.